And welcome back to the Inner Journey. It's Tuesday at the 2-ish o'clock hour. I am Robert Morales, RCO Network, with my esteemed and brilliantly bright and extraordinarily happy today because she loves it, Miss Mary Heather VanAlstyne. Hello. She's back with us again. Every Tuesday, we explore emotions and feelings and the things that are embarking upon this life we call being human.
Life.
Or just life. And so we come at you every week, and we were talking before the show just about the content and the things that we could bring you guys, and it's always a challenge, because we want to talk about these things that are profoundly on our mind all the time. Trying to figure out these life events and emotions, controlling all the negative stuff, and just enjoying all the positive stuff. So a lot of it is based on your comments and feedback. So if you want to go ahead and type in anything, we love feedback, even the bad ones.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We had one bad comment one time, and it just ate at us, and it's like, oh, we're not whatever. But that's what it is. So if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and put the little like button. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and catch us every week doing this.
Yes.
Stuff. Yeah. Hello.
How are you today?
Pretty good. You know what I love about this show?
What's that?
I have a soundtrack for everything. Look at that. Yeah. Like who does this in real life? Or even this. Look at. Yeah. Hello, welcome. It's just there's
fun.
There's just fun things in life that you get to enjoy, and when you have a sound panel, that's kind of what you can do.
I think we should all have one just on us at all times, so that we can do that during the day.
I wish this thing was portable, because there's so many other sounds too. But we came today and we started talking about the things that we go through, and I was presented earlier this week, yesterday, with this sense of balance and understanding life and trying to figure out all these emotions, and we do that constantly, individually as people, and we've had moments, and I've this whole journey that I've been on with Mary has been very interesting. Putting the show together and just having discussions, and it's really nice to have somebody to kind of have those moments with. And there's no barriers, and it's a friendship built on really no expectations, I would say.
Yeah, no expectations and acceptance of different perspectives, and building on those perspectives and broadening both of our perspectives at the same time. So yeah, it's been beautiful. Yeah,
it's like helping each other. And again, like sometimes you come across friends that have issues in the past, and it just permeates them, and then they project out to you. And when they project out to you, it's almost like they want you to fix their problems, or console them, or nurture them like they were as children. And that's not necessarily a true friendship, but I think that's sometimes how we cultivate relationships. And that could be friendships, that could be intimate relationships, that could be just kind of aloof friends, or community members. It's those past scripts that really get the best of us. And we were talking about that, past programming.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the times we'll surround ourselves with people that will feed who we believe we are, right? So we'll surround ourselves with people that help reinforce the thoughts that we have about ourselves, or the feelings we have about ourselves. So as our consciousness evolves, we tend to draw in more philosophical friends, I guess you could call it, friends that have a different way of thinking and a broader perspective and a different level of consciousness. So
and the interesting thing about my life is that when things have shifted, I've had so many life turmoils, and everybody does. I mean, I had 10 years of child abuse investigation history, so I got to see a lot of raw emotions. I've had my own divorce. I've lost 90 pounds at one point. I've left a 10-year career to try something new, and embarked upon this whole thing that's what you're watching today. This is the culmination of 8 years of putting weird stuff together and trying to make a business out of it. And this whole journey has brought me to this sense of balance, and it's accepting the negative and the positive, and trying to find that middle ground of I have past issues, I have past scripts, they do weigh me down, but I want to be in that state of positivity. But that state of positivity also takes so much time away from the other things that are constructive. When you love somebody, you just totally bask in the love, right? What's really made out of that, other than sharing a moment with somebody? You're taking away from other things you could be doing constructively. For instance, when's the last time you went to vacation?
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
It's been a while.
Oh, yeah,
I took like
we
a
had
little
COVID or something.
COVID. I had a little mini trip to Rocky Point a couple months ago. That was a nice little getaway. 2 days, 2.5 days. Yeah.
Yeah, and so last week we talked about 3 realms of somebody's life to find happiness, which is one is community, one is your intimate relationships. If you watch Alfred Adler or read Alfred Adler, and the last part is your intimate relationships, or I should say your passion.
Yeah,
And so when you are involved and you're in love and you find that person you're just so captivated on, you're taking away from what your individual passion is. You might be passionate about somebody, but as far as a career and decisions you're making in your own life, they're kind of taken away a little bit. That time is taken away. So it's nudged and given to somebody else.
Yeah.
So that your passion is definitely something that what drives you and makes you whole, but it's taken and occupied by something or somebody else.
Do you think that we always have that imbalance where our attention and energy goes into one of those 3 places, or that it's only in a new relationship, or does that happen in a relationship that's been going on for a long time? Or is it just that newness in that?
It could be various things, right? Is there such a thing as love at first sight? You're just totally like forgetting everything. You're kind of like leaving work early. And
Yeah, they say that's the, what is it called? The dopamine,
yeah.
right? That makes you not want to eat, not want to sleep, not able to think straight. And they say that's not, that cannot last, which is why we have the honeymoon phase of 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that hit of dopamine. It's dopamine, right?
That's one of them. There's also oxytocin.
Oxytocin, yeah.
The love hormone, the one that connects
That's the
you.
one I meant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, dopamine too, But that's our physical realm. We talk about, finding the love of our life and that passion and being that connected. But going back to what we're talking about, it's like if somebody doesn't feel that, if you don't feel that void within yourself, that sense of consciousness within yourself, you tend to branch that and put that on somebody else to figure out, or at least provide that dopamine hit. That passion you find was in your career and in your work is being filled. It's getting that dopamine, and then all of a sudden you find somebody, and now that's taken away from there. But again, if you're not aware of your feelings and where you're at and who you are as a person, sometimes your past scripts will put that on somebody else. Will put that ownership on somebody else rather than yourself. And I think that's where a lot of relationships fail. It's because they're not aware of that. I'm putting all my past issues upon you. I need you to nurture me and make me feel better, make me feel whole. Because you did at the beginning, because it was crazy sex for like 4 months. Then all of a sudden, like, well, what happened? I'm busy.
Reality came.
Busy, well, I had to go at that meeting at, 5. I couldn't come home,
Yeah, and I think that, it's going to continue to happen in our lives if we continue to search for something outside of ourselves for that state of happiness or peace that we are striving for in the long run.
Yeah, and so I was posed this week, again, we're about 8 minutes in. So I was posed this week and challenged with, like, there's a sense about you that is very calm, but there's also a part of you that seems like you're brooding and you're sad. And I absolutely agreed. Because I think so many people out there want to seek balance out. They read and they go out, but balance in a way where they avoid pain and they avoid everything negative.
Distraction, not balance. Yeah.
Well, perfectly put.
Yeah.
And so there's so many people out there like, I found balance and I'm happy in my life. And I'm like, well, balance really isn't happy. It's not sad either. But it's acknowledging both sides of that and contemplating what side do you choose to be on, which goes back to the conversation and consciousness.
Yeah, I was listening to a book actually earlier today, I believe it was. I listened to a couple of them, so I'm not sure. I think it was the Letting Go, I think. And it actually talked about this way that we get into this we will try to avoid negative or quote unquote negative emotions by going and doing something as like hanging out with friends or zoning out in front of a TV, going to a party, going to, excessive exercise or jumping into work and burying ourselves. And all of these are methods of avoidance of these so-called negative feelings that are arising in us. And however, none of those activities are bad in and of themselves. And when you are in that space of peace and inner happiness, you can enjoy those same things just for the pleasure of enjoying them. So it's the same activities, but it's how you're enjoying them. Are you enjoying them because of your attempt to distract and escape, or are you enjoying them just for the pleasure of enjoying being with a friend? And that all boils down to like what's going on inside. And are you running from something, or have you embraced that negative emotion, allowed it to teach you what it needs to teach you, allowed it to flow through you how it needs to flow through you? Because the reason those things come up is because they want to move on, move through, you know. And we've gotten in such a habit in society of having to look a certain way, having to present ourselves a certain way, where we feel that we need to suppress and push down all of these emotions or feelings that aren't positive and try to live in a positive state all the time, which is impossible.
And annoying
for
too.
anyone.
I mean,
and annoying.
if you go to the office and you constantly see that person always happy, you're like, why the hell are you always so happy?
usually there are those people that is
boy.
a false sense of happiness, which is just an indication of like a serious, you know, unhappiness within them, you know.
Yeah, and I do agree with that. So if you guys are watching and have any comments or questions, go ahead and post them, and we'll get to them as we go along. But I mean, going back to that example of somebody always being happy at the office, you know, that to me, if they're constantly always happy, there's a suppression there. Or maybe they found that true balance and they choose just to be happy all the time.
Well, I think you can
chances
tell.
are-
Yeah, I can think you can tell when the person is authentically happy, because I tend to be happy most of the time and show up in a very positive way. And then I think the indicator is when the person is overly happy and overly positive, and that's kind of my indicator of like you can almost feel that it's a show, right? And so there's that like, oh, that person's a little too happy. Probably there's something going on underneath, you know.
Because I will say it took me 38 years. Yes, 38 years after self-evaluation and being very conscious about my own feelings to know every time I chuckle, every time I kind of, it is what it is. I find myself usually saying something very uncomfortable that precedes that. You know, it could be a half-hearted compliment. It could be a genuine, but I'm taking a chance of some sort. And I was giving an example like, hey, Mary, you're dressed kind of nice today. You know, it could be something as simple as that. And it's like, well, okay, so what was I uncomfortable with that I chuckled after that? So I noticed that every time I do that. And now it's just a part of me. It's always just been a part of me. But consciously now I'm aware that, oh, why did I feel uncomfortable saying that? Because it was that the chuckle masks that discomfort that preceded that. And it took me 38 years to figure that out, which is like very enlightening, but also very frustrating too. But then it's just part of me too. So it's like I accept that as who I am as a person, but I acknowledge that it comes from a sense of pain or avoidance of pain. Because if I'm giving you a compliment or if I'm saying something negatively perceived in my own head, I mask that with a chuckle.
So is it like a fear of rejection? The chuckle kind of diffuses that, or
yeah.
Okay. Do you think that the chuckle diffuses the other person, or is it just you're still learning?
It's within myself.
I got it. Okay.
Because there's so much of me that is connected to people. And obviously, I mean, I've been on this thing and I do events all the time and I'm always constantly talking to people. So that sense of connection with them is very important to me. And so if they perceive me negatively or if they, are frustrated with something I said, can I mask that by kind of laughing it off a little bit? Hey, Mary, your makeup's running.
Is it?
She's looking. And so that's the thing is like trying to find true balance is accepting those negative parts about you that push you and drive you, because it's not always bad, you know. And I think the epitome, or at least the epiphany that I've had over these last 40 years, because it's taken me that long. It took a divorce to really like slap me in the face. Well, and there was other things, you know, the 90 pounds thing, and then the me leaving the state because I worked for the state, leaving a career, all kind of culminated at the same time. And it really like it was a big slap to the face and say, hey, you really need to make some changes, otherwise you're going to repeat these patterns. And sometimes you repeat the patterns what you learned, which is goes back to those past scripts. And it's such a challenge to accept that everything that I'm driven to is brought by some sort of pain that I experienced, you know. And I can get into it, you know. I my parents sometimes, or my mom will watch the show, and I got to be mindful of that too. But it is something that I own and something that I live with constantly every day, and that acknowledgement, like Example. So my mom was always constantly mad at my dad for not finishing anything. And I saw that pain in her eyes and the face, and I was a little kid. And the one thing that propels me is seeing disappointment in people. That disappointment pushes me to finish things because I feel like if I accomplish something and I create something and I show it to them, like, here, I did this for you. Oh, thank you. I finished it. Look, I did it for you. That I'll get that sense of like non-disappointment. So that's kind of one of those things that you admit but don't admit. You don't want to tell people that disappointment really drives you, but it does. And that's what that whole negative comment last time was all about. That negative comment that we had on our YouTube video. So if you go back on our YouTube videos,
oh boy.
you can find the negative comment.
We might be asking for some more.
We might be asking some more. Ramona says we're being very authentic. Thank you. But you can go back to those comments, and that really hit me and Mary because it's like we're really trying to build something here. We're really trying to share and have moments together and share them with you guys because I found a friend that I can actually talk to these things without that expectation of like, well, I told you my problems and you don't want to listen to me. I think we all have those beer buddies that we just go vent to and really don't care what's going on with them. I just wanted to have a place to tell you what else going on with me, and then get mad at them for not listening or whatever. But, trying to find that true sense of balance is accepting the negative, and
yeah, what I thought was kind of interesting was that, when I saw the comments and there was that twinge of like, ugh, here we are, we're trying to create a space that's safe to talk in and talk about things that maybe are controversial or taboo, and then this person attacks us. Yeah. And then what I thought was really interesting was when I sat and thought about it and realized the thoughts that I was having about that person, it was the same thing that they were doing, right? Yeah. So I'm like, oh, there goes my instinct of being that automatic, judgmental, righteous one, whatever it is. But if you look at it, it's the same thing, just a different perspective on each. So I thought that was really interesting to observe within myself. And I always take those opportunities to really observe where am I coming from, and learning from the negative experiences or negative emotions that come up within me, because I have really realized that everything that comes up in me is to teach me something or to allow me to observe myself in a way that I learn, and I'm able to shift my consciousness or my perspective in order to just align with love and acceptance of everything and everyone, and that's kind of my journey recently. So that was another opportunity to do that and to see where I came from this righteous place of judgment myself by getting that comment. So
if you want to go look for that comment, you can kind of see what we're talking about. Yeah. But, again, at the end of the day, I think we all want that balance. And so much of us try to avoid and get so involved in things like addiction is one of them, to avoid everything that hurts. And it doesn't have to hurt. I mean, if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling loss, it's something that happened in the past. It's not happening to you presently. It's just affecting you presently. And so being conscious and being aware is really seeing how that's affecting you and why it's coming. And if you have triggers, because there are certain triggers that I have that I know will come up, and I prepare myself, and sometimes it's really related to people, which is very interesting. Not so much as circumstance, because if there was absolutely zero people on this planet, we wouldn't have anybody to complain about. We wouldn't have any ownership or expectations for anybody. We would just do, and so it's not that your husband hasn't finished the dishes. It's not that their spouse hasn't folded the laundry. It's their emotional connection you have to them. You're just projecting that as an insecurity you're having. We talk about that all the time, or at least I do. I talk about feelings and emotions all the time.
Yeah, I do as well. And I'm really down this rabbit hole of learning about feelings, emotions, thoughts. And what the beautiful thing about it is once you kind of open that door and you start learning about it and you start getting curious about it, there's this sense of breaking away from the thoughts and the emotions and stepping into this presence and awareness of yourself having these thoughts and emotions. And then it gets really fun because then you're kind of disassociating from the thoughts and emotions at times. You're able to really, like on my way here when I was having a lot of thoughts and emotions about coming here to do this. And
it gets her really anxious to be on the show.
Yeah, and so I had a lot of past programming thoughts coming up about worthiness and my ability to express my thoughts, and do I even have anything to contribute? And it was interesting because I've been on this consciousness path for so long, I was able to pull back and become that presence that was aware of Mary having these thoughts and emotions, and be able to disassociate from those thoughts and emotions and continue my drive here, knowing that I'm still coming to do what we agreed we were going to do, and that it's going to turn out great, as it always does, and I'm always going to feel better after leaving. However, it's that detachment, that disassociation from these thoughts and emotions that allows us to gain a broader clarity on like what is actually happening, and allow these things to actually happen versus becoming these thoughts and emotions, right? Could have been like, you know, I allowed these things to take control of me, and then I'm calling you saying, well, something came up and I'm not going to be able to make it today, you know, instead of being able to kind of detach and go, that's interesting. And being that observer of the thoughts and emotions is really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's the counseling hour we have for each other. We don't pay for counseling. We just post stuff on Facebook.
Great.
You know, what a better place to just vent than
Welcome
with,
to our minds.
Yeah. It's your fault for watching. But again, if you guys have any comments or questions, go ahead and put those in there. And any likes, we appreciate. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube there. But, you know, as we're wrapping up the show, we got about 9 more minutes, Miss. You know, we talk about consciousness a lot, and you know, what does that necessarily mean? Is that being aware? Because so much of us, you know, would, I guess, like to say we're conscious about who we are and what we're doing and the direction we're going, but I think a lot of it is that past script. You know, if you really take a step back, if you're living your parents' life, then you're really not conscious of where you're at. Or the things that you've embarked upon. If you another example, I was very comfortable with the state. My dad retired from the state. You know, he lived in this small little town, very comfortable, kind of sheltered, purchased an inordinate amount of things just to make himself feel better. You know, because we buy things because, you know, if we're hoarding because that little tiny feeling gives us that.
It's never enough. We're trying to fulfill that. Like, it's never enough. We want
constantly.
more. We want more. Yeah.
You know, and I took a step back and I realized, man, I'm really living his life, and I'm bound and destined to repeat my parents' lives. It's really both of them. It's a kind of a culmination, and even their own emotions, their own patterns of behavior, the way they, you know, affected each other, treated each other, or communicated, all that. You know, the way they communicated with each other was very similar to the way me and my ex-wife communicated to each other. You know, and in that relationship, I was my mom and my ex-wife was my dad, which is, again, very interesting that you repeat these patterns until you become very aware of that and being conscious of that. And so how do you do that, Miss Mary? How do you become conscious? Is that too challenging of a question?
Wow, no. I think that, you know, sometimes you just get that question that we all kind of get it, that burning question of like, why am I here? Why do I do this? You know, and that all the consciousness is an awareness. It's an awareness that you're having a thought, or an awareness that you're behaving a certain way. How do you have that? Ooh, that's hard. I mean, to me, it seems like it just came. It just became like a natural questioning of why things are the way they are. Why am I here? You know, and that just kind of opened up a little bit more of an awareness. And then, you know, of course, reading, going to different personal growth courses that get you to take a look at yourself, right? It's just that awareness. It's just a little tiny awareness, and that opens the door for so many more questions, and being able to look at yourself a little bit deeper, and being able to start witnessing how you think. Like, that alone is huge. I mean, if you think about it, how many people don't even know? They're just a random automatic thoughts and random, what do you call it? Autopilot, right? And it's all these thoughts from their past repeating themselves over and over again, and they never even are aware of it. So,
and I would go out on a limb and say people, generally speaking, are frustrated. They don't know why they're frustrated. They just are frustrated, and they drown themselves. And this is why I don't watch TV, because I feel TV really distracts you from those thoughts and being creative. I think when you can get to a creative state, you're using optimally your emotions, your sense, your connection to spiritualism, because I think, and this is just a belief, that when you're being ultra creative, it's because you're getting a force, or you're being kind of directed towards that by an alternate being, whether that's God. We've had that discussion before. Whether it's God or something else out there in the universe that's kind of directing you in that course of action. And that's your sense of creativity. When you have a thought and it culminates and it creates something, that's your connection to that spiritualism. Like I'm a poet, and I do tend to see words kind of drop out of nowhere.
Yeah, thoughts are things. They
come from somewhere.
Yeah, they come from somewhere.
You know, I guess physically you can say, well, it's just synapse in your brain cells and they cause this sense of creation. But I truly believe it's something else.
Yeah, there's now scientific evidence about the frequencies that they can measure that thoughts and emotions put out. So they are things, then they're, it's like we all have the ability to tap into something and kind of just download these things when we get into that creative space, when we have that bit of peace, that bit of quiet. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think people's consciousness really hinders upon their frustration. I think people want to change, they just don't know how.
Sometimes it does take an event, a traumatic event.
Took 3 for me.
Yeah, well, I know. I've often talked to people and told them my story, my life story, and people are like, wow, you have lived 10 lives. And I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm so aware. Because every single one of those traumatic experiences, it's almost like it's an awakening happened for me.
What's been the hardest one?
Whew.
Oh, did I tap on something? You better hurry. We got 4 minutes. Oh boy.
Well, I mean, I would guess that probably my very near-death car accident that I had 20 years ago would be that was a huge awakening for me, and it opened my eyes to see things completely differently. And
does it still impact you today too?
No, not in a negative way, but I still see there are several times that I'll be going through something wonderful, and I will tie it back to like, God, had I not had that near-death experience and changed the way that I saw the world, this would not be happening. I have said dozens and dozens of times, if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be having this one. My life would not be this sweet. I wouldn't have an appreciation for things that I have an appreciation for now. So sometimes it takes that moment in like dark night of the soul, and a lot of people experience that, and then the awarenesses start to come, and then from there it's like once you open the box, right, you can't unknow what you know now, right, and you just start down this path of expanding your consciousness, and that's just such a beautiful thing. And sometimes it happens naturally, and sometimes we're just going for it, And
I would say it's probably the same for you as it was for me, like especially right after I always mark the divorce, because I feel that was my kind of cocooning. I was cocooned for 12 years in that divorce. And then the instant was the thing that allowed me to break out of the cocoon. So I use that as like a marker in my life. But I'm sure it's similar. And it's I think it's easy to articulate after the fact, after you've kind of gone through all the emotions and processed, and now you're in a better state, where people that haven't reached that state, they're kind of apprehensive and they don't know. But the stuff that I'm sure you've gone through has taken time. When I first filed my divorce, it was like, I want to say about 6 months after that, where I started feeling like myself again. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of reading. It took a lot of like counseling. I think everybody needs counseling, by the way. But it took a lot of counseling. It took a lot of moments alone. I leveraged on music. I leveraged on my poetry. There were so many little outlets that I was able to, but that process took about 6 months to start to feel like myself. And I think I really felt like myself after about 4 years, when all those kind of realms between my passion and my community and my partner, they all kind of started coming together, and when you reach that part too, when you reach that epiphany, it's like you start inviting all these new people, it's just so strange. Like you coming across you. I mean, like, I don't think I would have ever met you or been in this place with you if I wasn't in the state I was in. If I was still back there 10 years ago, you'd be like, hey, dude, yeah, I'm Zen. You are like, you got some shit going on.
No, because at the same time, you would have been thinking the same thing about me. I have had quite the journey and transformation in the last 5 years. People know me now, and they're like, I can't even recognize who you used to be, And it's not that we had this this experience that boof, we just came out and we're a different person. It's all the little things that we went through, and being able to look at ourselves and grow, and look at ourselves and grow, and be willing to sit in that space by ourselves and go through the experience. That it's like the compound effect, right? It's all the little things, and then we look back and we look over the 4 years.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily see all the different things that we did in order to reach the state that we're in now. And that's actually one of my projects that I'm going to be working on here in the next couple of months. Is I have about 5 years of journaling of really profound things that I've, and I'm going to kind of boil it down into steps that I kind of took in this journey of consciousness and expansion. So stay tuned for some exciting content coming from me. And, and I'm just going to go away and kind of camp out and like isolate myself in a space and just be able to really go through all that and see if maybe there is kind of a process. There are several different processes out there, and if I can contribute in any way to helping someone along that path, that's what I'm looking to do. So.
Well, Mary's contact information's there. We're at the end of our show.
Oh,
so it's
yeah,
been
wow.
we just barreled right through it.
Yeah.
So, if you want to contact one of us or you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments section. If you stayed here all the way to the end and you love what you're hearing, give us a little heart, because we love you. So, but we're here to genuinely help. So until next time, we're going to be putting our emotions in check, exploring a little bit more, and then obviously getting back to your questions and comments, whatever you got for us. So until next week, Tuesday around 2-ish.
2-ish.
We'll catch you guys later.